Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right when Carlson comes, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Carrick. Fighting scores! Off the face-off! Up it's Eminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They go! They score! They score! Now they catch each other. They both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the Mile High city of Denver, Colorado.
And St. Paul, Minnesota.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to the Calder Farmstead Podcast, episode number 48 for Thursday, September 23rd, 2021. If you're hoping for a podcast showcasing the ancient Norse farming method of ladnam, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast. My name is CC Hockley, the AHL editor of Full Press Hockey.
And I'm Sean O'Brien from Stats Track and the AHL's only analytics guy.
He's kind of a big deal. And as always, we thank you all for tuning in with us.
If you're new to hearing CC and I talk about hockey, we're going to preview some of the teams in the AHL for the upcoming 21-22 season. We both watch a lot of games and are going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you might want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms, like the point shares model, which is the model we use, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes today trying to figure out if Jeopardy champion Matt Amadio's streak has become an all-time record yet. You'll never get that time back. So why not next time spend a little more time with us talking hockey?
And for the record, he hasn't. I believe, he's like at 24, 25, and James Holzhauer was 32. But anyway, I'll take off my nerd glasses for now. All right, so quick note before we begin. We are doing a contest, if you haven't heard already. We are giving away 3 free AHL TV team packages. So to enter, go to our Linktree page. If you're not watching this on YouTube, that link is linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. You click on the AHL TV giveaway button for instructions on how to enter. And yeah, you could win a free team package. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right, now it's time to preview. We're going to jump over to the Central Division. We're going to preview 4 teams from the Central today: the Texas Stars, the Iowa Wild, the Manitoba Moose, and the Milwaukee Admirals, in that order. Another quick note to mention, there are rumblings that the CHL-NHL agreement may be amended to allow some junior drafted players into the AHL, which would be a game changer. I think they saw it last year and were like, oh, this could work. So we've included some guys who may still be in juniors, or may still be juniors eligible, rather, just in case they get to play. Better to be safe than sorry. So without further ado, let's get to it. First and foremost, we have the Stars, the Texas Stars, and their head coach, Neil Graham. He's entering his second full season with the club. He was promoted to head coach in January of 2020. So coached a partial season. This will be his second full season. 2021 record was 17, 18, 3, and 0. That's .487 points percentage. That was good for 5th out of 6 teams in the Central Division last season. Their affiliations for 2021, of course, you're going to have the Dallas Stars in the NHL, and since 2005, the Idaho Steelheads in the ECHL. Very long-running affiliation going on there. Game scheduled 72. Real quick, let's talk about additions to the team this year. Jeremy Gregoire, Curtis Mckenzie, Andreas Borgman, Alexander Petrovic, and Spencer Young, the rookie coming in from college, I believe. Subtractions, you've got Nick Baptiste, Derek Baruch, Adam Mascarin, Nick Mutry, Cole Schneider heading back to Milwaukee this season, Julius Honka, and both of their goaltenders from last year, Landon Bowe and Thomas Scholl, heading over to Europe this season. Nikita Sherp, what's that?
Very sad. Patron Saint podcast, Thomas Scheel.
Patron Saint podcast in Domine Patri. Amen. Nikita Sherbak, Taylor Fadoon, and Jake Slaker a few days ago announced he signed a professional tryout with the Columbus Blue Jackets, so I'm guessing he's probably not going to be back in Texas. Let's start with the forwards core. We're going to include the guys that are staying and the guys that are new. We're going to do a mixture of both. Let's start with Joel L'Esperance. Got into 12 games for Dallas last year off the taxi squad, but didn't make much of it. After 121 games in Texas, L'Esperance barely needs an introduction to Stars fans here, but we'll do it anyway. What the hell? We'll do it live. There's a lot to like about his game. He has good puck skills and tight and can make defenders look bad one-on-one. His shot is excellent and can beat goalies from tough angles. He's more of a shooter than a playmaker, as his vision isn't that good, but he does sneak in a few nice assists from time to time. Defensively, he's an asset and plays a 200-foot game that also includes solid penalty kill work. I still think his skating holds back an otherwise solid skill set. It doesn't quite hurt him at the AHL level, but I think it's why he's unlikely to ever stick full-time with the big club in Dallas. He's a proven goal scorer still in Texas, and goal-scoring ability is the most valuable hockey skill you can have. Imagine that. Next up, we have the AHL Rookie of the Year from last season, Riley Damiani. And after his monster season, there's a shot that Damiani makes down outside of camp, but I think it's more likely he at least starts the season in Texas. Damiani bailed out last season mostly due to his hockey IQ. I witnessed it in one of the games where he scored a hat trick against the Colorado Eagles. He good. He sees the ice at a high level, can find passing lanes from the perimeter that others simply cannot. His other big asset is his work ethic. He's capable of winning battles down low and making tough plays in small areas. I think his skating is somewhere between average and above average, but it's good enough, even for his size, to not be a limiting factor. While not a bad shooter by any means, I like to see him work on adding layers to his shooting profile, maybe some added deception, a quicker release, etc. Given that skill set, Damiani should be a bona fide top-line PP1 style player that can drive the offense. Next up, Jordan Kawaguchi. There's a lot to like with his game. Great playmaking vision paired with solid puck skills. His hockey IQ is high, and despite being only 5'9", he's strong enough not to get muscled off the puck. He's a better playmaker than shooter, but his biggest problem is his skating. It's not good at all and definitely holds him back from being a much more complete player. If he can find line chemistry with teammates with wheels, he could be an effective middle-of-the-lineup playmaker. Next up, Ty Delandria. Ty Delandria feels like a player I've been hearing about forever, but only has 19 AHL games. And covering the Steelheads for a couple years, I definitely can relate to that. He's probably going to spend some time in Dallas this season, but I expect to see him in Texas for a significant amount of time. Although given the rate in which Dallas Stars injuries tend to pile up, who knows? Regardless, Delandria is a speedy skater who processes the game quickly, allowing him to play fast-paced. He's also a hard worker with a high motor, so when you pair that with his skating and good puck skills, shooting and playmaking vision, as well as a respectable defensive game, you have all the ingredients for a great player in Texas. Delandria is only 21 and has yet to really put it all together, so to speak, at the pro level. I think this could be the year he breaks through, though. Next up, we have one of our nominees for Best Flow last season, Anthony Lewis. A streaky scorer who's typically struggled early in seasons, Lewis looked to take a step forward last season. His puck skills are his best asset, as he can protect the puck well and has the poise, patience, and playmaking vision to find teammates in space. That's 3 Ps. You're welcome for the alliteration. While not a slow skater, he certainly lacks the top speed and burst you'd like to see in a player his size. Defensively, he's doing the minimum to not get benched, but is by no means a defensive asset. Ideally, he can be a top 6 forward when he's on line with someone he can find in dangerous areas and who can finish on his passes. Curtis Mckenzie, coming back to the Stars after a few seasons away. He's a good veteran leader who plays a power forward left Texas in the offseason. He plays a power forward. He replaces Cole Schneider, who left in the offseason, like we talked about earlier. The Texas Stars went out and got a good veteran leader who plays a power forward style in Curtis Mckenzie. He returns to Texas having been the captain in 17-18 and a big part of the Calder Cup team in 13-14. I like Mckenzie's game a bit more than Schneider's at this point in their careers. I think Mckenzie's the better shooter, has more polished offensive toolkit. This is a slight upgrade in my mind. Mckenzie's big selling is his ability to finish in tight, whether that's shooting his quick release, heavy wrist shot, or banging home a rebound, or getting a tip, or finding a teammate for a tap-in. Mckenzie is physical, power forward. 2 words. He can be a good forechecker despite his skating being below average. All in all, he's still got gas left in the tank at 30 years old and should be a useful top 6 forward for Texas this season. Next in line, Nicholas Komano. Komano has always been more blunt instrument than refined tool in watching him play. He's shown flashes here and there of higher end skills, but that's exactly what they are, just flashes. His game is based more on work ethic and physicality than anything else, rather. I think Kamano's 1920 season was more noise than signal as he falls back to being just a useful depth scorer for the Texas Stars this season. Jacob Peterson. Peterson is a very simple prospect to describe. He plays offense. That's it. To his credit, he's a pretty good offensive player. I love his ability to constantly attack defenses and drive to the middle. He has very good puck skills and a great hockey IQ paired with some solid playmaking vision. He has an average but effective shot, and his biggest downside is, can you guess? Skating. His skating stride is all over the place, Sean, and is in dire need of refining. This is also not exactly what you want to hear from an offense-only player. And when I say offense-only, I mean don't expect him to do much of anything in the defensive zone. I think there's a good chance Peterson can carry over his offensive production to a more physical and tight-checking North American game. I think if he does that, he's going to end up on some AHL highlight reels for sure. His skating, defense, and strength need improvement, though, if he's going to truly break out as a player. All right, next up is the man who changed his name this offseason, or at least put it more towards a traditional spelling in his native country, Evgeny Otsunyuk. He's a Stars prospect who had flashes of brilliance, but is ultimately inconsistent. His skating is interesting because he lacks straight-line speed, but he has great edge work and can make the cuts, and he can turn on a dime. He's shown good puck skills in tight and the playmaking vision to manipulate defenders and find open teammates. His shot is good, but not great. Being 5'7" isn't a problem per se, especially at the AHL level. Being 154 pounds, according to elite prospects, that is a problem. And he needs to find the nutritionist and the strength and conditioning coach, and he needs to staple them to his jersey and make good friends with them this season. Put on a little muscle, as it were. Next up, Josh Melnick. So Melnick, he had a pretty good season in 2021, showed off some offensive production that hadn't been present in previous seasons. I'm not confident that was sustainable, though, as he shot an 18.8% clip in 2021, and his shooting talent in previous seasons don't match that. So I think his offensive output regresses just a little bit. Melnick's best asset is his work ethic and his defensive prowess. He's an effective forechecker, but not as the first guy on the puck, but rather taking away options in the neutral zone. In the defensive zone, he's active in finding threats and can win battles along the boards with his physicality. Offensively, his skill set probably rounds up to about average. His puck skills and shot aren't that noteworthy. He has a nose for the net and can get his stick on tips and rebounds, as well as find soft ice. His skating speed is below average, making him more of a dump and chase guy than a controlled zone entry guy. I think Melnick settles in as a 3C who can play up in the lineup if chemistry works out, and he can also lead the penalty kill. That's it for the forwards for Texas. Shawnee, let's talk defense.
Yeah, wow, that was a lot of forwards, too.
It was. Almost a San Jose level of forwards. Okay, maybe not that much.
Yeah, the clown car that is the Barracuda roster. All right.
We'll get to them. Not this episode, but it's coming. Yeah. We'll get there.
All right, so let's talk decor here. The big signing that Texas made in the offseason, Alex Petrovic, he was a surprising player for me last season as he looked much more capable and a much more mobile defenseman than he had previously in Providence or in Florida. Petro helped the Stockton Heat of Calgary find early season results. He was a big part of their transition game. He QB'd their power play to great success. He was physical and defended well on his own end. Given the way that Texas likes to play, he should be an immediate asset and a useful mentor for a lot of the younger guys on the roster. I think as Texas and Dallas, too, like to have their defensemen carry the load through the neutral zone if possible and join the rush. Petrovic has shown that in past season or so that he's capable of doing that. The big stud, though, on defense, that's Thomas Hartley. Hopefully the NHL-CHL agreement gets loaded into a rocket and shot in the sun. We've talked about it a few times in this podcast. I think it's dumb entirely. It's not the NHL's job to make sure the CHL is viable. That's their job. Regardless, if it's not, Thomas Hartley's entrance to this preview is strictly academic. But let's talk about it anyway. Harley had a legendary season last year, being the third highest scoring teenage defenseman per game in AHL history. First all-time is John Carlson. Second is shootout specialist Marek Malik. But yeah, third all-time, and somehow Max Gilden was the AHL All-Rookie team guy over him. Okay. Anyway, Harley's a future NHLer who does just about everything well. He's a damn good skater who can duck forecheckers and spearhead the rush. He's got great playmaking vision, hockey IQ, and puck skills. His shot is an absolute missile. Defensively, he uses his skating to maintain tight gaps and surf to kill plays in the neutral zone. If I had to pick something to critique, I'd say that I've seen him take over games in the last half of the season. It seemed like it took him a bit of time to get comfortable and up to speed, but I want to see a full season from Thomas Harley. Harley also needs a nickname, so I'd like to propose we nickname him after a Harley-Davidson model. That seems to fit. I propose the Night Rod. According to the Harley-Davidson website, the Night Rod is a race-inspired model meant for high performance, whether it's on the track or on the road. Basically, wherever you go with it, it's going to perform really well. That's Thomas Harley.
The Night Rod cometh. That's the name of your sex tape. Brooklyn Nine-Nine joke. Trust me. If you've seen it, you know.
Next up is Andreas Borgman. Borgman is looking to play on his fourth AHL team in 5 seasons, which is at least mildly concerning. He's a decent skating two-way defenseman, although his offensive toolkit is not the most complete. His puck skills are fine, but his playmaking vision is just average for the AHL. His shot has good velocity, and he has some deception to his game, working in some feints and fakes. He'll jump in and join the rush with some regularity, which should be beneficial to how Texas wants to play. We talked about that. Defensively, he's a big and physical kind of defender. He occasionally takes bad penalties, but not that often. He's good at winning battles and clearing rebounds in front. In transition, he's okay at defending his blue line. Not good, but not bad either. He isn't the best under pressure and will often resort to glass and out plays when he feels the first bits of forecheck pressure instead of trying to find a passing outlet. Overall, I think he's a fine middle pair defenseman. He's not going to win you games, but he's not going to lose you games either. After a stunning 18-19 season, Ben Gleason followed that up with a very underwhelming 19-20 to find his game again last season. Will the real Ben Gleason please stand up? Gleason's game is mostly powered by a big offensive toolbox. He's got higher-end puck skills and playmaking vision. His shot is good, but it's not great. His skating is improving, but it's still around average. His biggest problem has been his defending and poor turnovers, trying to spring guys for breakaways too often. He is very much guilty of trying to hit home runs when he just needs to get on base. I think that improved last season, but I want to see him get a further handle on it this year, as he should get top 4 minutes for Texas this year. Last defenseman we should talk about here is Dawson Bartow. Not the season we were hoping to see from the rookie, but in hindsight, I suppose we should have seen it coming. Bartow isn't a polished prospect in terms of offensive skill set or defensive technique. His strength is in both ends of transition, making good first passes, defending his blue line against rush chances. His hockey IQ is high, but the rest of his toolbox is underwhelming, and with limited offensive upside in his puck skills and shooting talent, again, we could have seen this maybe coming. For a reasonable-sized defender, he's not nearly as physical as you'd like to see either. Still, playing both ends of transition well are valuable skills, and Bartow does that well. He should stick around to be a middle to bottom pair guy with some upside alongside the right partner. Those are all the defense that we, can fit into our allotted time scheme here. But Cece, tell me about the voodoo that will happen in Texas.
Well, goodness. The Texas goalie room has definitely changed. We talked about Scheel and Bo heading out, and it looks like Jake Ottinger is the odd man out. Speaking of which, in Dallas, once again, you've got Ben Bishop, should he come back healthy. You've got Khudobin, of course. And then, for some reason, Dallas brings in Braden Holtby. So I don't know if that's just an insurance policy because Bishop or what. But yeah, Ottinger is looked to be slated for the AHL this season. If I'm Jake Ottinger, I don't know how last season's performance said, we need to sign 32-year-old Braden Holtby. That's not banking on your future. And Ottinger looks promising. I don't know what the deal was, especially as Holtby hasn't been even an average starting goaltender in the NHL in the 2 years and hasn't been a quality NHL starter in 4. Dallas's bizarre moves are likely Texas's gain, though, as Ottinger does everything well. He's got a massive frame. He has athleticism to move well. His technique is solid. He reads the play well. All in all, he looks like a usable NHL starting goalie. So if he does get AHL starts, I'm expecting nothing short of an award-worthy season from him in Texas. Next up, Adam Scheel. Scheel had a good, albeit limited rookie season last year, sneaking into 12 games and running a 3-headed goalie rotation. Scheel's strength is reading the play and being on his angle to make the saves. He struggled a bit at times last season, and I think that's based on his athleticism and his ability to explode from post to post when things break down. He's an intriguing young goalie, and I think it would be best for him to be a backup getting 35% of the starts to a more established goalie in the AHL like Jake Ottinger or a veteran signing. Colton Point, last but maybe least in this goalie room here. This season is Point's last under contract. He'll be a restricted free agent next season. And unless he finally shows us something this year, I struggle to imagine he's going to be back in the Stars organization. He got sent down to Idaho last season kind of as I don't know if it was a punishment or what, but yeah, Point has a lot of the raw tools you want in a young goalie. He's got a large frame. He moves well. He reads the play well. Point's problems all seem to be with consistency and his ability to stay focused and keep the bad goals out. This will be his 4th pro season with 57 pro starts under his belt. And while he's had good games in those 57, his overall results are just not good. And I would be worried for Texas's season if they see him splitting starts down in Cedar Park. All right, Shawnee, we've covered the 3 groups of players. Let's talk overall outcomes. First and foremost, best case.
Best case scenario is Jake Ottinger stays in Texas, and so does Thomas Nightrod Harley. With the scoring depth they have in Ottinger and net, this team should be favored in most of the games that they play. If that's the case, they finish with 88 points. That's a 61.5% points percentage and 2nd in the division, but 4th in the AHL. We're going to repeat this little nugget pretty regularly throughout this. The Central Division this year is the death division. 6 of the 7 teams are capable of winning this division, more or less.
I was going to say, welcome to Murderer's Row. All right, worst case scenario. If Ottinger and Nightrod leave, Texas should still be okay. They have enough in the reserves to get by, but they won't be nearly as fearsome, understandably so. They finish with 79 points for a 55.32 points percentage and a 4th place finish in the division. Gosh, in this wacky season, that's good enough for a playoff berth. All right, Sean, best case, worst case. Let's talk most likely case.
The model projects them for 84.64 points. I think that's being a little optimistic. I think Ottinger is still going to get time in Dallas no matter what happens. So I think that pulls them down a little bit. I think the same thing with Thomas Harley. There are versions of this team in which I could see some regression from last year in individual cases. Damiani, their leaders are getting a year older. Petrovic's getting a year older. So I could see some toned down expectations that maybe the model isn't working into consideration. I'll take the slight under on that and say 83 points for a 57.67 points percentage, which is still a 2nd place division finish, which, death division. That ain't too bad.
No, vast improvement from last year as well, for sure.
And it's funny because they started out so well last year. Like, it was funny watching their trajectory with Iowa. And it was just this opposite curve where, like, Texas started super hot and then just crashed, and Iowa started terrible. And then Jerry Mayhew showed up, and then they started trending up, and then it made like a nice pincer. It was beautiful on the graph. Anyway, we're going to take a break here. After the break, we'll get to Iowa, Manitoba, and Milwaukee season previews. If you're just here to hear about Texas, we didn't mess with them, but thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at The Calder Farmstead and Twitter on Calder Farmstead. We're also doing a contest giveaway. You might have heard about it. We're giving away 3 free AHL TV team packages. And yes, those are the ones where you get to choose the team and get the whole season, home and away. To enter, head to our Linktree page, linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. There are buttons there for the AHL TV giveaway that will give you instructions as well as tell you all the places you need to go, all the buttons you need to press. Check those out. We'll be right back talking Iowa Wild.
We've gone from Dallas and we're heading up to Iowa, the former affiliate of Minnesota. Not sure how the franchise and everything work, but yeah, the Iowa Stars going down to, yeah, they're linked. Yeah, you get the picture. They are linked, and we're talking about the Iowa Wild. Tim Army is going to be entering his 4th season with the club. 2021 record was 17-13-4-0. That's .559 points percentage. 4th place out of 6 teams last year in the Central Division. Affiliations for 21-22. This is new. Minnesota Wild, of course, the NHL affiliate, but the Iowa Heartlanders coming into the ECHL this season, making their debut alongside Trois-Rivières. And so, yes, the Iowa Heartlanders in the ECHL is affiliated with the Iowa Wild. Games scheduled, 72. Let's talk additions. Dominic Turjon, Kevin Churchman, Joe Hicketts, John Lizotte, Doyle Summerby, Nate Soucis, and Bryce Gervais. Subtractions leaving the Wild organization is Gabriel Dumont, Luke Johnson, Jerry Mayhew heading over to Lehigh Valley, Mitch McLean, Josh Atkinson, Brendan Mennel, traded over to Toronto, Nick Seeler, Carson Soucy, and Matt Bartkowski. All those guys heading out of Iowa this year. Let's talk the guys that are staying put, both old and new. Sean, let's talk about the forwards core for the Iowa Wild.
And we're going to do a little bit of fantasy wish casting here. Does Marco Rossi play for Iowa this season? I have no idea, but I sure hope so as an AHL podcast. Rossi missed essentially the entirety of last season with complications from COVID. An otherwise healthy young man in peak physical condition got put on the sidelines from COVID for almost an entire season. Do with that information what you will. For Rossi's game, it's beautiful to watch. Beautiful. Great puck skills and can find passing lanes and defenses that are tiny. He has a crazy high hockey IQ and wins board battles despite being smaller than me. His skating is above average, but I wouldn't call him a speedster. I think his shooting is underrated. Not that he doesn't have high-end velocity, but a rather quick release and deadly accuracy. All in all, if Rossi is on the ice in Iowa, I don't think there will be any times in which he's not the best player in the game. Enjoy his time in Iowa while it lasts, Wild fans. To follow it up, does Matthew Boldy play for Iowa this season? I don't know, but I sure hope so for our sakes as an AHL podcast. See also Rossi, Marco. If you were lucky enough to see Boldy play last season in Iowa, you know, Boldy, like Rossi, is special. His puck skills are amazing. His playmaking vision is elite. He doesn't get pushed to the perimeter easily and finds space in dangerous ice. His shot is good, but it's not great. His biggest hang-up is his skating, which is just merely average-ish. Should he be able to gain or step a two, he would really be an all-around weapon that could just do it all. He's still an unquestioned top AHL player for however long he plays in the AHL, and will absolutely be driving the offense in Iowa. Next, we got to talk about one of the returners from last year, Connor Duoir, who actually is not related to the whiskey at all, which is very sad. He seemed to turn a corner when Mayhew came back to Iowa. Mayhew's gone to Lehigh Valley, but there's a lot to like in Duoir's game. His biggest strength is his hockey IQ and offensive toolkit. His playmaking vision and puck skills are good, but they're not great. His shot is also good, but not great. His skating is very okay. He's not slow, but he doesn't have that top gear that puts defensemen on their heels. Defensively, I think he's fine. I think he could be a good top 6 forward for Iowa, but I could see a scenario where he struggles to find that chemistry this year. Mason Shaw bounced back from an injury that cut short his 1920 season, and I like Shaw's game a fair amount. He's not the most talented, but he does a lot of little things well. He wins board battles. He's an excellent forechecker. He can skate the puck through the neutral zone. That gives him the ability to play up and down the lineup. That's not to mention he's got solid playmaking vision and puck skills, making him a useful playmaker. Should he find line mates that can rip the puck, I think he's going to be a safe bet for top 6 production. Will Bitton is one of the few players in this Iowa roster who can just flat out fly. Others have question marks about their skating, or they maybe don't have that high gear, but that's not Will Bitton. That's the basis of his game, though. He uses his speed to be a solid forechecker and turn corners on defense. He's also got a high level of work ethic. He has good but not great puck skills and playmaking vision. He's a decent shooter, but he's more of a pass-first kind of player. All in all, he's someone to pair on a line with a better shooter who's maybe not the fleetest of foot. Damien Giroux had a pretty good rookie season last year, finished 6th in scoring in Iowa. He has the puck skills and hockey IQ that you'd want to see. His work ethic is also excellent. His skating doesn't do him any favors, but I could see him getting buried a little bit on the depth chart to start the season, but end up in the middle 6 by December, January. Michael Chafee, a good first season from him that answered a lot of questions. I personally wasn't sure his offense would transfer, but 17 points in 28 games and a solid process behind them would certainly suggest that I was wrong. That will not be the first time that happens this season or ever. So I don't think he's likely to drive offense on his line, but he's got enough offense in the skill set to be a good passenger on his line, which sounds insulting, but it's not meant to be. Lots of guys can't drive offense, but are good complementary pieces. His skating is quite good, and he has a top speed that can threaten defenders on the rush, as well as forecheck effectively. His offensive game struggles a bit due to his poor timing. He goes to the net and works hard, but doesn't find passing lanes and doesn't work to get open down low inside those passing lanes. I do like his attention to detail defensively as he gets his sticks in passing lanes and can kill penalties. Overall, I think he's probably a third-line guy, but one who could sneak into the top 6 when call-ups and injuries happen. A guy coming across the rivalry lines here a little bit, Dominic Turjon coming over from the Griffins, where he spent 5 straight seasons. Turjon's a 200-foot center who can chip in some depth at scoring. His puck skills are above average, and he can beat defenders in tight. He has a nose for the net and can get on rebounds. His raw shooting talent is, I would call it below average, because most of his goals come off of rebounds, loose pucks, dekes. Very rarely is he beating goalies cleanly with shots. Defensively, he's solid and can kill penalties. He should be a good third-line center who can help close out 1-goal games on defense. Brandon Duhaime isn't one to end up on the score sheet all that often, as his offensive toolkit isn't that big, nor that impressive. His biggest contribution is in his own end, as he's a quality defensive player who's physical, wins battles along the wall, and gets pucks up the ice. In the offensive zone, he can utilize his size and strength on rebounds and retrievals, but isn't likely to end up on the highlight reels. I'd like to see him maintain the same level of physicality this season, but maybe bring the PIMS down to under 1 per game. That would be great. Adam Beckman snuck into 7 games before the WHL started up, and then snuck back into 2 games at the end of the season for the Iowa Wild. His skill set is pretty easy to describe. With the puck on his stick, he's dangerous. He has a rocket for a shot and can find the tiniest of passing lanes with his playmaking vision and puck skills. Bottom line is, if you give him time and space in the offensive zone, he's going to hurt you. His game outside of the offensive zone, yeah, that's not great. His skating means that he's going to rely on teammates to get pucks to the neutral zone, and defensively, he's pretty unremarkable. Still, I think he's going to be a big part of the top 6 for Iowa this season because of the things he can do in the offensive zone, especially when you pair him with more defensive-minded guys like Turjon or Duhaime. Those are all the forwards that we have allotted to talk about. Cece, tell me about the D-core. Who is going to be helping the goaltenders stop pucks and get them to the forwards?
Well, I think first and foremost, Kayla Addison. You got to talk about him. That's our podcast, the Calder Farmstead's Defenseman of the Year for the 2021 season. Addison is another that's unlikely to spend the whole season in Iowa. Don't be surprised to see him in Minnesota for sure. His biggest strength is his skating. Addison looks like he's just effortlessly floating out there. He escapes pressure and walks the blue line just so smoothly. It's a poetry in motion. Beautiful thing to watch. He's great in transition and can make high-level plays in the offensive zone during 5v5 and on the power play. Defensively, he's not great. He's not terrible, but he isn't physical and had quite a few instances last season where he could have hustled to make a better play in the D zone, but just didn't. He's still a weapon in Iowa and is their undisputed number 1 D-man and probably the best defenseman in the division, dare I say. Next up, Joe Hicketts. Hicketts has been a useful puck-moving defenseman in Grand Rapids for 5 seasons now and comes over to Iowa for a fresh start. Him and Dominic Turjon just jumping right over to Iowa. He's mobile and an okay but not great skater. He makes good first passes to get the puck out of the zone and start transition. And while he's 5'8", no one bothered to tell him that, and he plays with a level of grit and physicality that's very surprising for someone his size. Offensively, he's got some puck skills and playmaking vision. He's not a great shooter, which limits his usefulness as a power play quarterback. Overall, I think he's a solid second pairing defenseman. Next, John Lizotte. Lizotte is a physically defensive-minded defenseman. In his own zone, he's looking to throw his body around and grind forwards down. With the puck on a stick, you're not going to see much creativity or offensive aggressiveness, as he prefers safe passes and glassing out to wingers in the neutral zone. I think he pairs well with one of the more offensive-minded D-men in Iowa, as well as a penalty killer. Dakota Mermis. Mermis is a strong skater who can move the puck well to start transition. His hockey IQ is good, but not great. He does a good job attacking plays in the neutral zone and killing rush chances early. In his own zone, he's a very good net front defender and does it with good body position and well-timed stick lifts instead of physicality. Albeit he isn't going to shy away from being physical. Don't get him wrong there. Offensively, he's got some good qualities and will attack off the blue line during offensive zone possessions. His puck skills are limited, and he flat out can't shoot. I think he could make a decent mid-pair defenseman, but we could see him not being given ice time or a role to succeed. That could see him. Yeah, could see him there. Last, but definitely not least, Kevin Churchman. The preacher man himself looks to surpass 500 professional hockey games this season in Iowa. He's been in the pulpit for a while, folks. His game, as he's aged, has become less and less offensive based. He can still make good first pass to start transition, a good first pass rather, but he doesn't have great puck skills or playmaking vision. His shooting talent is average at best. And Churchman's best ability is his physical brand of defense and desire to smite guys down along the wall, going Old Testament on their asses. He's managed to continue to do this while not being on a first-name basis with the penalty box door guy, which is good. He does struggle to defend his blue line as his skating has not aged well. You might need a wall of Jericho for that. I don't expect a ton from the preacher man this year, but he'd be a steady partner for someone like Holy Joe Hicketts, as it were. Sean, enough of me and the preacher man puns. Let's talk goaltending. Do that voodoo that you do so well.
Well, I can't recall a professional career for a goalie that started worse than what Hunter Jones did last season.
Oh, Lord.
He let in 16 goals in his first 2 starts. 16.
1-6.
He failed to let in fewer than 3 goals in his first 9 starts. He let in a goal on a shot from center ice. Not like one that took a weird bounce or deflected off something, or he was clearing it, hit a stanchion and came to a guy and they put it in a net that he wasn't, in. I'm talking straight puck from Cody Franson at center past Hunter Jones. Now, he did start to cobble together some respectable starts towards the end of the season, logging 4 of his last 6 starts, allowing 1 goal or fewer. So improvement. Jones has a lot of things going for him. His frame is quite large. He has good athleticism and can make big explosive movements to get post to post. Those are both foundations of a good goaltender in the pro ranks. His concentration, puck tracking, and ability to find his angles and stay on them is incredibly troubling, though. Perhaps in the weirdness of the last year, Hunter Jones just couldn't focus on hockey or whatever. But this season, he's going to need to take steps forward in order for me to believe in him, which, for the record, I currently do not.
Maybe see him in the Heartland.
I do believe, however, in Derek Baribeau. He was unquestionably Iowa's best goalie last season, but injuries plus the Wild's insistence on playing Hunter Jones kept him on the bench more often than desirable. Baribeau is another large frame goaltender who moves reasonably well. He hasn't gotten much in the way of playing time as a pro, Since the 18-19 season, he only has 29 starts. Yes, a global pandemic happened in that time span and is still happening. But for comparison, Kaapo Kähkönen played 63 and Hunter Jones played 68 in that same time span. Ideally, I'd like to see Barabo at minimum split starts with Jones, but I don't think that's going to happen because a somewhat surprising addition to the roster is Andrew Hammond, the Hamburglar. But both goalies in the goalie room are under 23, so yeah, a veteran presence was likely warranted. Speaking of goalies who haven't gotten much work lately, as we did with Derek Barabo, opening night will have been 582 days since Andrew Hammond last played a professional hockey game.
Wow.
582 days since Andrew Hammond played a professional hockey game. He didn't get in any games at all for the Wild last season. Taxi squads, am I right? That being said, Hammond has settled to being a useful but unexciting starter since he went on a tear with the Ottawa Senators in that 14-15 season. For those playing along at home, that was 7 years ago. Hammond has been a roughly league average AHL starter since then, and hopefully can provide some mentorship and calming presence for the younger Utes on the roster in the goalie room. That being said, I think he gets enough of the starting workload to squeeze Barabo out to the smallest share, which I'm not a fan of, but I think that's the way that this shakes out. CC, speaking of things that shake out, how do we look at the Wild season shaking out? Let's talk the good, best case scenario. How do the Wild do?
Well, Sean, this season is going to be a rest. It's going to rest a lot on three players. How much time Boldy and Rossi get in Iowa, if any, and how much has Hunter Jones improved? Rossi and Boldy stick around, and Hunter Jones looks to be a league average goalie. In that scenario, Iowa finishes with 86 points, good for 59.57 points percentage. That's second place finish in the division and sixth in the AHL. Let's swing the pendulum. We'll go over to worst case with Sean, of course.
Yeah, the worst case is the opposite of that, which is dramatically different, as Iowa's depth is fine where it is, but when we start bumping up depth scores to primary scores, things get dicey. So no Boldy, no Rossi. Hunter Jones looks like a carbon copy of last year. Iowa finishes with 74 points for a 51.07 points percentage and sixth in the division. Yikes.
Well, let's bring it back towards the middle of the spectrum, maybe in the middle, a little skewed. Let's find out the most likely case. And the model, it's only a model. It has projected them for 81.25 points for a 56.43 points percentage and a third place to finish in the division. I'm going to take the slight under on that and say 79 points for a 54.87 points percentage and a fourth place finish in the division. Just a little bit better than last year.
CC shaving points out here. Jesus.
Hey, as you can tell by my beard, that's the only thing I'm shaving.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I see it's growing back a little too.
it's straight laziness. This is not a style.
At least you look good. At least it's not all patchy and grows in all white trashy like Joe Dirt.
It's Joe Dirte to you.
Don't you try and spice up Joe Dirt.
All right, we're going to take a break here. After the break, we'll get to Manitoba and Milwaukee season previews. If you're just here to listen to Iowa and enjoy the beautiful training camp that's going on behind me, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. We're very fun there. On Facebook and Instagram at The Calder Farmstead and on Twitter at Calder Farmstead. We're also doing a contest and giving away 3 free AHL TV team packages. So if you're an Iowa Wild fan, you could win a year of Iowa Wild AHL TV home and away games just for clicking some buttons with us. To enter, go to our Linktree page, which is linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. If I have to spell The Calder Farmstead for you, I don't know how you got to this podcast. But anyway, you go to that link, you go to the AHL TV giveaway button, which will give you a little video that explains all the stuff you have to do, plus links to everything that you need to click. We will be right back talking about whether or not it is Mies night. Stay tuned.
All right, we're back from break, and you may be asking yourself, Is every night truly Meese night here at the Calder Farmstead? And that's kind of a silly question because you know the answer is going to be yes. Every night is Meese night here at the Calder Farmstead. And of course, we're talking about the Manitoba Moose and a fun tweet that we shared with them, Twitter exchange rather, last season. Every night is Meese night for the Manitoba Moose. Their head coach coming into this season is Mark Morrison, his first with the club. Gotta love those AHL coaching promotions to the NHL clubs. 2021, I mean, you do have to love it. I'm not being sarcastic. Sorry, that sounded sarcastic. 2021 record, 18-13-3-2, .569 points percentage. Surprised us, way over projected. Second out of 5 teams in the Canadian division last year. And of course, for 21-22 this season, they're coming back to the Central. Things are getting back to normal. The league is healing. Affiliation for this year, though, Winnipeg. They lost Jacksonville to the New York Rangers and Hartford Wolfpack. We ain't here to cause no trouble. We're just here to report on the affiliation shuffle. That's what we do. Games scheduled 72. Let's talk additions. Todd Burgess coming in. Mikey Isimont, Littleton, Colorado native, I might add. Luke Johnson, Austin Pagansky, Evgeny Schwechnikov, Dean Stewart, Philippe De Rossier, former Idaho Steelhead, and Greg Morellis. Subtractions: Tyler Grayovac, Skylar McKenzie, Nathan Todd, why would you let him go? Ashton Sautner, Giovanni Valalti, Marco Polo Dano, Weston Michaud, and Adam Brubacher signing a professional tryout with the Detroit Red Wings, so probably won't be back. Probably going to head to Grand Rapids if I were to bet anything. All right, let's talk forwards and let's talk Cole Perfetti. Oh, my spaghetti. There's no sense in burying the lead here. Let's talk about half of the amazing Coles in Canadian pro hockey. Cole Perfetti is one half of those. The other one, Caulfield, I'm guessing. Perfetti has brilliant hands and one of the highest hockey IQs in the AHL. His shooting talent is underhyped, I feel, because of what he can do as a playmaker, but make no mistake, his one-timer is deadly and he can catch and shoot with the best of them. There was a reason the Moose finished second out of 5 teams last year in the Canadian. There was some concern of how he would adjust playing against grown-ass men for the first time last season. As for his size, he's not an explosive skater. And the answer was that it didn't matter. After a few games to get the speed and the timing down, Cole Perfetti did Cole Perfetti things, and he made the magic happen because he's a magic man. His skating is his weakness, though, and he's unlikely to ever be one to push the speed of the game and turn corners. He's still a top-line AHL player, as you probably gathered, and I expect him to take a leap in Manitoba early and get time with the big club up in Winnipeg. Well, they play out of the same arena. I say up in Winnipeg, organizationally up. He's going to play with Winnipeg this season. Luke Johnson, that's a name you might recognize. Johnson played a well-rounded game. Offensively, he has an above-average skill set. He can make good passes in the O-zone to set up teammates. His best offensive skill, though, is his shot. He has a quick release and an accurate wrist shot. He does struggle catching off-target passes cleanly and won't be beating anyone one-on-one, but he protects the puck well. His skating speed is lacking a gear, and his edge work is a little stiff. Defensively, he's engaged and physical, and he'll look to force turnovers in the defensive zone. I think that makes up for it pretty well. Next up, we got Jeff Malott. Malott was a surprise last year, as I don't think anyone saw him being such a valuable contributor to the Moose. Malott's game is in tight in front of the net, creating havoc and banging in rebounds or finding soft ice to shoot from dangerous areas. He's big and physical and will win battles below the goal line and along the wall. He's not a great skater. He lacks speed, but he can make up for that with his relentless work ethic. Defensively, he's physical and can grind guys down, but he isn't particularly adept. He's more than capable checking line winger. He's a more than capable checking line winger with upside into the top 6 if he can find chemistry with some higher-end line mates. Let's talk Austin Pagansky real quick. Much like Malott, Pagansky is a physical forward who best served crashing the net. He has good hands and tight and can finish plays around the net. His puck skills aren't fine-tuned enough, though, for one-on-ones, and his skating keeps him from being a threat on the rush. Defensively, he's capable and useful, but he's not a very great penalty killer. CJ Cease is a solid two-way center who, offensively speaking, continues to be a jack of all trades, but really a master of none. Cease has capable puck skills and playmaking vision. As a shooter, he's average at best. His skating is about the same, as he does not have a top gear that pushes the pace. His real value comes from his work ethic and his defensive awareness. Cease can be useful. He can be a useful second-line center, but ideally is a third-line center in between more offensively talented wingers. Christian Reichel struggled out of the gate with only 2 points in his first 12 games last year. However, he did find his game around April and finished the season getting time with Cole Perfetti 5-on-5. Reichel's game is more crash and bang than finesse. He's got a nose for the net and will battle in front for tips. Big surprise there. He can win battles down low, although he isn't very physical. He has some polish to his offensive skill set, but not a ton. His puck skills, playmaking vision, and shot are all around the AHL league average. Defensively, he's very responsible and will not get caught deep in the offensive zone. So there's that. Cole Mayer, looking to find some more offense last season, which is perhaps a byproduct of getting some shifts as the center on the second power play unit. I'm not convinced that sticks, though. Mayer's offensive skill set is merely fine. He has good puck skills, but lacks higher end polish. His playmaking vision is limited. His shot is about average for the AHL, and his skating speed isn't a strength. But he's physical and can win battles down low. He can find space around the net. But the 20-goal, 34-point pace he was on last season seems like good fortune more than good process. Look for that to come back down to earth a little bit, but that's not to say that he can't add value to the Moose. Defensively, he's sound, and his skill set can be a good complementary piece to more offensively minded players. I think he's a fine third center for the Moose this season. Mikey Isimont, the pride of Littleton, Colorado. Like I mentioned earlier, Isimont is a good addition to the Moose as a depth scorer coming over from Ontario, where he played last year. He has a hard and accurate shot, but his release isn't the best. He likes to play in tight and can finish plays around the net. He has average puck skills and struggles with catching passes and getting his shot off in a fluid motion. He's not the fastest skater, but he can move. Defensively, he's not going to add much. I think Isimont is a third liner who can chip in 10 to 15 goals and maybe 25 points this season for the Moose. Makes him a solid depth scorer. Lastly, we've got Evgeny as I'm tripping over my words. I know how to say this. Evgeny Schwechnikov. Schwechnikov. Yes? Yes. Okay. Second guessing myself. Come on, CC. I've had such high hopes for Schwech in his career early on, and there was a lot to like about his game. He has good puck skills and can create offense with his ability to protect the puck with his frame and find teammates in the offensive zone. He is physical, and can drive to the net with enough shooting talent to finish plays. His skating isn't bad, but it's not good either. Just kind of middle of the road there. Still, he has a lot of raw tools necessary to be a top AHL player. He just never seems to find the consistency or intensity required to make most of them. Maybe a change in scenery to Manitoba will help, but I think we're in for another season of flashes of brilliance, followed by stretches of absence. For Evgeny Schwechnikov. All righty. That's a lot of forwards. Time to go to defense. Defense. Sean, you're up.
All right, let's talk Declan Chisholm. If you haven't seen our episode 0 that we made way back in January as a primary to how we think about players, you should probably go do that. If you have, you know how important transition is to the game, and that's where Chisholm shines. He's an active participant in turning pucks in the defensive zone into rush chances that going the other way, whether that's through starting breakouts himself with solid first passes, jumping into the rush on the weak side, or beating the forecheck with his solid skating and walking the puck into the neutral zone. He can do all three. He's also not shy to attack off the blue line, which I like a lot. Defensively, he was a lot more effective than I thought he would be, as his defensive skating in the past wasn't a strength, but he forced offensive threats to the perimeter and killed plays. While he's not the most dynamic with the puck on his stick in the offensive zone, and he's not a good shooter, he looks to be a staple of the Moose top 4 this season, with maybe some time on the Jets later on. But you just don't get it. You got to keep it Kovacevic. A surprising bit of extra offense in Jonathan Kovacevic's game this past season, as he surpassed his previous season totals in 16 fewer games. I was surprised as his game is much more defensive focused. He's an excellent example of a defenseman with not great skating, finding ways to be effective in his own zone, as his hockey IQ allows him to pounce on plays at the right moment instead of vigorously chasing forwards around the rink. Offensively, he's got a hard shot, mostly due to strength rather than mechanics, and his playmaking and puck skills are okay at best. Pairing him with a more offensive-minded partner who is willing to jump into the play is where Kovacevic should find himself in the Moose depth chart this season. Vinnie Hinola's calling card is his hockey IQ. He's crafty and creative and can get defenders to make mistakes in the offensive zone. His puck skills are also impressive, and his shot is good, but not great. What concerns me about his game is his skating. His stride is choppy, and he relies on his puck skills to bail him out of trouble that his skating puts him in during a transition. Defensively, he's improved, but I would not call him a reliable defender. His defending of his own blue line and reads in zone have noticeably improved, though. All in all, a good but not great top 4 AHL defender with a lock for power play production. Dylan Sandberg was not the offensive season that we were perhaps hoping for from him, but I don't know if that was realistically in the cards. Sandberg's offensive game is limited by below average puck skills and shooting talent. That makes me wonder how he ever scored 7 goals in the NCAA. That's not to say Sandberg lacks offensive talent completely. I think he has a high hockey IQ and very good skating. He knows when to jump in and join the rush, providing an additional option as the fourth forward in the D zone and through the neutral zone. But he does struggle with puck control and shooting mechanics. Defensively, though, Sandberg is a straight stud in all facets. He's aggressive, physical, doesn't take penalties. He can kill penalties in the neutral zone and defends his blue line very well. I think his ideal place is as a top pair defenseman alongside an offensive-minded partner where he can kind of balance the risks that they take. Leon Gawaki is the yin to Chisholm's yang. If you were paying attention earlier, and that was only a few minutes ago, I hope we haven't lost you already, I said that Chisholm was great in transition, solid defensively, and had good skating, but wasn't that dynamic offensively and couldn't shoot. Gawaki has an NHL-level velocity to his shot that can beat goalies from distance. And the offensive zone, he's creative and can draw defenders to him while setting up others. In transition, he's mistake-prone and will resort to glassing out when under mild pressure. Defensively, he's capable at defending his blue line, but in zone tends to get lost and lacks the defensive awareness to anticipate plays well. There's a useful defenseman in Gawanki's skill set, but it's not one you can blindly throw on the ice without regard to the situation. I like him, but to maximize his effectiveness, his minutes need to be monitored and probably a little bit sheltered. Those are our blue liners we're concerned with. Solid group overall, although not the sexiest. CC, let's talk voodoo. What are the goalies going to bring to Mies Night this year?
All right, let's go in the crease, shall we? First up, Philippe De Rossier. And if you remember the name Philippe De Rossier from previous AHL seasons in both Springfield and Texas and are wondering how his season went last year, well, it didn't. Opening night in the AHL this season will mark 585 days since Rosie's last start. And though he did get a chance to dress as a backup goaltender for the Florida Panthers, spent pretty much all season on the taxi squad. Aren't they the best? Not. Well, hey, De Rossier has been bounced around between the AHL and the ECHL for most of his professional career, only playing one full season in the AHL. His numbers in that time were consistently good, but not spectacular. His game is solid as well, and he does everything pretty well and nothing terrible. Can confirm. Perhaps it's that lack of high-end quality that keeps him in the minors, but he should be a very useful 1B to the Birdman this season. I'm not talking about Harvey Birdman. I'm talking about Mikhail Burden. Last season, the Moose did not get the memo that Artus Silovs was supposed to get his share of games. They drove Burden into the ground, starting him an absolutely ridiculous 30 of 36 games. By God, this is not 1995, and he is not Martin Brodeur. No. This undeniably wore Burden down as he played back-to-backs, 3 and 4s, and 3 and 5s the entire season. You do not do that to your starting goaltender. That's just cruel. Burden is an athletic goalie, first and foremost, who tracks the puck at a ridiculous level. His biggest problem is that he lacks the consistent technical structure to fill in the gaps in between and will often leave himself exposed to cheap goals in tight because of it. Add this to his fatigue level from being overplayed last season, as we've chronicled, and you get a goalie who started the season with a .919 save percentage through 11 starts and finished with a .897 save percentage, going .885 through his last 8 starts. Hopefully this season Burton gets a normal, more spread out workload. I think that does happen with Rosie kind of backing him up as that 1B, as I mentioned, and it won't grind him down as he's a talented goalie, and with some refining, he could be in the end season awards conversations. Those are the individual player groups. Let's talk about team outcomes, and let's talk about best case scenario with Sean O'Brien.
I question how much the Jets want to rush the Perfetti party into the NHL. I think he'll get some looks, but overall I think he spends the majority of the season in Manitoba. Should guys like Schwechnikov and Isimont be able to find a little more offense that we believe is in their game, but they just refuse to show us, the Moose could do well in the depth division that is the Central this year. In that scenario, they finish with 81 points for a 56.04% points percentage and in a deadlock tie for 4th place in the division. That's the best case, CC. Let's talk worst case here.
Well, worst case is the Perfetti party spends the majority of the season with the Jets, and an injury call-ups take useful veterans like Luke Johnson with them. There would be enough here to hold down the fort in a normal division, but this is the Central, and this is Murderer's Row. In that scenario, the Moose finish with 73 points and a 50.96 points percentage. That is good, quotation marks, for 6th in the division. All right, let's talk most likely scenario here. Let's not go to extremes. Let's get realistic. Sean, what do you got?
The model has the Moose finishing at 78.64 standings points for a 54.61% points percentage and a secure 5th place finish in the division. While I think they have a sturdy D-core and should have one of the better goaltending rooms in the division, there are some questions in forward depth. As I'm sure when you were listening to our preview, you heard a lot of forwards like, well, they have some individual skills, but like they're guys that can crash the net or guys that play good defense. And then Cole Perfetti and Luke Johnson, who are capable of kind of doing everything. So they're going to have some depth scoring problems, I think. But I do agree with the model. I think this is a very likely finish for them, and I'm going to take the 78 standings points and 54.61 points percentage, 5th place in the Death Division, which I think off the top of my head is still a playoff spot in the goofy format that we have. Yeah,
barely eking in for sure.
Yep. All right, so we're going to take a break here. After that, we will get to Milwaukee, who's been waiting a very long time for us to do this preview. If you're just here for Mies Night, thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at The Calder Farmstead and Twitter at Calder Farmstead. We're also doing a contest and giving away not 1, not 2, but 3 free AHL TV team packages, both home games and away games. To enter, you can check out our Linktree page, which is scrolling down below here on YouTube. But if you're listening, it's linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. Go there. You can click on the AHL TV giveaway buttons for instructions and all the posts you need to click on and that kind of thing. Stay tuned, listen to some ads, and we will talk about the ads when we come back.
From our final ad break, we cover the ads. And like Sean said before the break, they've waited a couple seasons for the Calder Farmstead to give them their first season preview. One of 3 teams bowing out of the 2021 campaign. COVID threw a lot of things into a tizzy, so the Milwaukee Admirals have returned. Head coach Carl Taylor coming back for his 3rd season with the club. As we mentioned, 2020-21 record, not applicable. But their 19-20 record was 41-14-5-3. They were leading the Central Division with Iowa kind of nipping on their heels in 2nd place there, but Milwaukee was good in 19-20. So it was kind of a pity that they couldn't play last year. But hey, there was no playoffs, so kind of a wash. Anyway, affiliation for this year, still Nashville in the NHL, still the Florida Everblades in the ECHL. Games scheduled 76 this year. All right, this is going to be a little bit different because the ads did not play last year, but let's talk additions that played with the 2021 Chicago Wolves, who Nashville hitched their wagon to for a year. Patrick Harper, Cole Smith, Zach Solo, Phil Tomasino, Mark Delgaizo, and Devin Cooley. Let's talk additions that were signed this offseason. Robert Carpenter, Cody Glass, Matt Luff, Mitch McLean, Jake McLaughlin, Matt Tennyson, Parker Gahagan, and Dylan Blugis. Subtractions, so ones that did play in Milwaukee a couple of years ago but now have gone. Lucas Craggs and Luke Evangelista. He's heading back to the OHL. Probably, yeah. Again, like our disclaimer at the beginning of the program, maybe the NHL and CHL working out an agreement, but I digress. Sean, let's talk Milwaukee Admirals forwards.
So Milwaukee needs, to back up that season that they missed, and they're going to do it with a high-end offensive weapon. Meet Cody Glass. Glass has great puck skills and can undress defenders who don't play him conservatively. He's more skilled as a playmaker than a sniper, which is really unfortunate as the nickname Shot Glass is right there. He's gotten more physical and can win wall battles, but I'd still like to see him add more muscle to his frame. Glass doesn't have an explosive skating stride, and while it doesn't keep him from being a weapon in the AHL, it probably keeps him in the AHL for now. Rem Pitlick, this has got to be the year he makes the Predators out of camp and stays the whole year, right? Right? Well, maybe. Just in case it isn't, Pitlick's game is fast-paced, which is odd as his straight-line speed isn't all that impressive, but Pitlick keeps his feet moving at all times and can do everything. Pass, shoot, and deke, all in stride, which is a high-end skill. Pitlick's biggest problem is that despite his work ethic and solid shooting talent, the rest of his offensive game is just okay. His puck skills could use some polish and refining. His playmaking vision is good, but not great. If he can sneak on a line with Cody Glass, I think he'll finish the season as a top AHL player, and I think he'll have a good season regardless, but Glass's ability to find teammates in the offensive zone, paired with his ability to find soft ice and shoot, could be deadly. We got to talk about him, Phil Tomasino. Phil Tomasino really screwed over a lot of prospects when he walked over to the AHL, when then he just kicked ass and took names as a teenager. That set the bar insanely high for other highly touted teenage prospects, most of which did not live up to the things that Tomasino did. Tomasino's game is easily defined. If it relates to an offensive skill in hockey, he can do it and do it at a high level. Skating with speed to the neutral zone to create zone entries, check. Dynamic playmaking in the offensive zone, check. Hard shot, check. Ability to finish plays in tight, check. Defense, yeah, that's on the questionable side. But I'll be honest, I don't care. When you can make beautiful things happen like he can in the offensive zone, 4 other guys can make defense function. I'm willing to let Tomasino basically just chill on the blue line until the play comes his way. Cole Schneider may feel a little differently, though. He returns to Milwaukee for his 13th season in the AHL. He's a prototypical power forward. His game is getting in close, using his size and strength to win battles for rebounds and along the wall. His puck skills are average. He does have good playmaking vision, though, especially in tight. His shot is average as well as his skating. Defensively, he's active in his own zone and has good defensive awareness to help kill plays in the defensive zone and cause turnovers. Tommy Novak was a big part of Cole Schneider's last season in Milwaukee, centered the top line of himself, Daniel Carr, and Cole Schneider. But the pandemic saw that season end, unfortunately. Novak is back in Milwaukee after spending a year with Chicago in their dual affiliation squad. In case you've forgotten, there's a lot to like in Novak's game. He's got excellent playmaking vision, and assuming he's reunited with Cole Schneider, he knows how to find him in high-danger areas. He excels at playing off puck, too, and can see moves ahead to be effective in all 3 zones. His skating speed is solid, and he has burst, but I don't think of him as much as a speedster. Shooting-wise, he has a good shot, and I think he should shoot more, but he's a fast pass-first guy by and large. His defensive game has taken steps forward, although I don't think he'll ever be relied on for defense. He was an offensive-only player through much of his college days, but to be fair, weren't we all? His defensive game has grown in that time since then, and it's really helped him solidify a 200-foot kind of game. Tony Rich, Anthony Richard, felt like he got overshadowed last season on a Wolves team that was at times 8 pounds of talent in a 5-pound bag. I still really like his game, though. He's a good skater who plays hungry. He has good playmaking vision and puck skills. He's one of the few players I've seen whose shooting talent has actually increased over time. Most guys kind of either can shoot the puck or they can, and it doesn't change a whole lot. Tony Rich's shooting has gotten better. Defensively, he's solid and one of the better penalty killers in the league. There are elite layers that aren't present in his game, though, but I like a lot of what I see. And if he could add some deception or the ability to make moves inside of skating strides, he could light the AHL on fire. Michael McCarron is a big-bodied power forward. He's at home in front of the net causing havoc, getting his stick on tips and rebounds. His skating speed is below average, so he's not going to be taking pucks to the neutral zone going coast to coast or trying to gain the blue line with possession very often. In his own end, he's actually quite good and can force turnovers, make a good first pass. If he can trim the penalty minutes down a bit more, he'd be a good value for a third liner in Milwaukee this season. And last but certainly not least is Igor Ofanisiv. Ofanisiv is likely to be an under-the-radar player this season coming over from the KHL. He's got above-average puck skills and playmaking vision, but his best ability is his heavy shot. His skating speed and ability to play with pace gives me the impression he could struggle early on in the AHL as he adjusts to North America, the North American game, and that kind of scenario. But I think if he can adjust by mid-season, he could be a surprise contributor down the stretch, as shooting talent is the most valuable talent a player can have. All right, those are our forwards that we have more forwards we could talk about, but we have to cut the line somewhere. Otherwise, we'd be here for another hour. Cece, let's talk defensemen.
Yes, and especially with Milwaukee, you can go on and on and on. But defensive-wise, let's focus on that. Unlike Iowa or Texas, who have young prospects to boost their otherwise okay blue line, Milwaukee has a collection of talent who all can just flat-out play. We'll start with Jeremy Davies. He snuck into a few games in Nashville last season, but I still expect him to play a fair portion of the season in Milwaukee. Davies' skating is the core of his game, which is important as he is all over the ice. He doesn't have a high top speed, though, but his burst is what's most impressive. Offensively, he is consistently involved, but doesn't have the higher-end skill set to make the most of his involvement. That's not to say he doesn't have puck skills or can find a passing lane, but the ability to do so is average. Davies loves to join the rush, coming off the blue line into the slot of the offensive zone, and just in general be involved with whatever is going on in the play. Defensively, he's very good and keeps pressuring forwards, taking away their time and space, and forcing bad passes and turnovers. If his offensive skill set can develop just a little more, he's a lock for a top pair spot in the ads and maybe get some more attention from the Predators as well. Alexander Carrier. Carrier got in quite a few games with the Predators this past season, but after Nashville's off-season moves, I still think he ends up in Milwaukee. Carrier's game, it feels a lot like, again, as I mentioned earlier about another guy, a jack of all trades, master of none. He's good at just about everything. He moves the puck well, he skates well, defends well. He's a pretty good shooting talent, but he lacks an elite anything. And I think that keeps him coming back to the ads and not the Nashville Predators. Hey, regardless, he's still a very good AHL defenseman and a very deep core in Milwaukee. Frederick Ellard, another guy who felt overshadowed on a loaded Chicago team last season. Ellard got his first NHL game with Nashville last year. And that being said, I expect him in Milwaukee this season. So let's talk about his game. His calling card is his hockey IQ. Say that 10 times fast. He reads the play well, anticipates, and attacks. And whether that's offensively finding passing lanes that others miss or being patient and letting plays develop through the neutral zone before making his move. The rest of his offensive toolkit is average-ish. He's not an explosive skater, nor is his shot exceptional. But defensively, he's good, but not great. Matt Donovan. After a second stint in Sweden, Matt Donovan returns to the 4-1-4 for the 21-22 season. Donovan is another ads D-man who can make things happen in the offensive zone. He skates well and has good playmaking vision and puck skills that allows him to start transition and make plays in the offensive zone. He's not shy about jumping up and joining the rush either. His shot is good, but not great. And defensively, he's improved, but I don't think he'll ever reach shutdown defenseman status. David Ferentz, next up, Offensively, there's a lot to like about Ferentz's game. He's a great skater who can pace the play and play with pace, rather. His playmaking vision and puck skills is good, but he has maybe the most inconsistent puck skills I've seen in some time. He's got good one-on-one moves, but he protects the puck poorly and can't make moves inside of the motion. His shot is deadly, and the wheelhouse for his one-timer is bigger than the Allen Bradley clock tower. Defensively, he's not good despite having great skating, and he isn't aggressive in defending his blue line. In zone, he isn't physical and lacks the attention to detail of keeping his stick in passing lanes or constantly picking up threats. All in all, he can have value, but he needs seasoning and a fair amount of growth before I'd feel comfortable putting him on the ice blindly. Last, Luke Prokop. Prokop's main skill is his defense, which is based a lot on his size, strength, and skating. He defends his blue line well and can force turnovers. In zone, he's physical but stays out of the box and reads the play well. In transition, he can make a good first pass to join the rush, but is rarely the puck carrier spearheading it. Offensively, he has okay puck skills and playmaking vision, but neither are anything to write home about. And speaking of average, his shot also unfortunately falls in that category. But ultimately, I think he'll be a good pair for a more offensively minded defenseman partner. 2 down, 1 to go. Let's talk about the goaltending room. Go for it, Shawnee.
Well, just when it seemed like Connor Ingram had found an organization with an opening to show what he can do in the NHL level, they draft Yaroslav Askarov and then sign David Rittich in the offseason. That's after being slapped in the face when Tampa traded him in 2019 for a 2021 7th-round pick. That is literally the least valuable thing they could have gotten in return for a guy at 22 who was one of the best goaltenders in the AHL. I hope for my own sake and my own absolutely avid curiosity that there's like a 30 for 30 about what happened there, because something did, and I want to know.
I reached out to Chad Boerth, who was covering the Orlando Solar Bears at the time, and I'm like, dude, why did Tampa do this? He goes, I have no idea.
People, like, there are people out there who know, and I want to hear this story. For whatever reason, though, NHL teams just don't seem to believe in him, and I'm at a loss for why. Maybe he likes going to museums too much. I don't know. While he struggled in his brief time playing in the AHL last season, that's a mulligan he's earned after several seasons as a top AHL goaltender. He's got several elements to his game that are high-end, including his movement and puck tracking. His athleticism is good, but it's not his calling card. His agent said during the Tampa fiasco that Connor's the kind of goalie that wants to play 60 games. And, well, with the other goalies in the room in Milwaukee right now, 60 games might be a realistic outcome, because Devin Cooley is there, and he has a large frame. He moves reasonably well. In the bits of film that I saw, he tracks the puck well. His resume from the University of Denver was pretty good, but was only 32 total games over his college career, which is not a whole lot. In his brief stint in Chicago last season, he struggled, but 2 games does not a sample size make. I think he has potential for a backup this season, but it wouldn't shock me if he struggles early on with the difference in college shooters to pro shooters, as pretty much every goaltender does who makes that transition. Thomas Vomashka is the other man in the room. Up and down career at UConn. I liked his technical structure and puck tracking in college, and he's good at making the first save, but lacks that scramble ability or athleticism to recover or go post to post. I could see him split backup duties with Cooley in the early going, with a hot hand sticking around and the other going to the coast. But the two of them getting a lot of starts would make me very nervous for what is otherwise a very good Milwaukee team. Let's get right into outcomes. This should be interesting. Cece, what is the best case scenario?
Best case, Milwaukee is stupid deep everywhere except goalie, and that's only because what's behind Connor Ingram is not the most proven, as Sean so eloquently detailed. Regardless, it's hard to figure out how this team doesn't just blow the doors off of other teams in the division and pick up right where they left off in 1920. Best case scenario is 99 points and a 65.5% points percentage. That's a division and an AHL regular season title by a very safe margin. Worst case, Sean, not really a worst case, I guess you could say.
I really had to get creative here. It's hard to imagine a season where Milwaukee isn't a murder machine. Like, I really had to find ways to get this team off the top of the division. It's basically Tomasino leaves for Nashville day one. Ingram goes into witness protection, and the defense does shots before each game. Even in that scenario, they still finish with 88 points and are second in the division. Like, that's the worst case. Second in the division, in the murder division.
Well, hey, let's see what the model has to say. That's not as much of a pendulum swing as it was with the other teams, or some of the other teams we covered in this episode. But hey, the model has the Milwaukee Admirals projected for 97.2 points for a 63.95 points percentage, and they take the regular season AHL title. We have to take the under on that, right? I mean, I guess we can take the under for 95 points and 62.5%, which is still a division title by a safe margin. It seems like it's Milwaukee and everyone else in the Central this year.
Yeah, it really is. I would point out that 95 points would lose them the AHL regular season crown in our fictional universe, because San Diego plays in what's the opposite of the death division? Like the cupcake division?
Yeah, the cupcake, the powder puff division.
Yeah, the Pacific is bad.
The powder puff Pacific. You want to talk about alliteration?
There we go. That could stick.
Stick.
The Central, for posterity's sake here, the Central has 4 of the top 12 teams in the AHL this season. By our model's strength, which is fairly reliably accurate. And like we talked about, every team has guys. Milwaukee's just a team of absolute studs, though. So good luck, everybody else.
You're going to need it, especially out in the Western Conference come playoff time. Anyway, that's it for the show. Thank you for watching and or listening. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and a number of other great hockey, sports, and sports entertainment programs at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Just click the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website. You click and then you've got the big list there, and you can enjoy a lot of good programming. And as always, we thank you for choosing ours on this extensive radio network.
If you guys are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the podcast. Or if you're watching on YouTube, hi. Like the video and comment what you thought of this episode. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at The Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. We're also doing a contest and giving away 3 free AHL TV team packages. Home games, away games, all of them could be yours for your team for free. Free. Links to all of that and more can be found in our link tree, which is scrolling below here on YouTube, but is also linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's DYSFUNCTION. So we can make music for you too. CC, where can people find you?
As again, my name is CC Hockley, and you can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL, and at my personal Twitter account at CCHawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. Majority of my tweets are about hockey, but you can also find me tweeting about pro wrestling, music, anything that interests me. I'm going to hope it's not going to be bullshit for you. Check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at www.fullpresshockey.com. Shawnee, where can the people find you?
My name is Sean O'Brien, a proper Irishman, and you can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien 81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien _81. My accounts are both personal, but still they're mostly hockey. My Instagram is my dog, more or less. She's adorable and she knows it. If you were interested about this model and goofy stats things about the AHL, you can find my stats work on Tableau at bit.ly/data dump and chase. All lowercase, all one word. Cece, take us home.
That will do it for episode number 48 of the Calder Farmstead. For Shaughnessy O'Brien, I'm Chadwick Charlestown Hockley. You can take that to the bank. Hey, thanks for tuning into the show. Again, we really appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in. And as always, keep your stick on the ice.